yeah, I should be out in Springfield, Massachusetts right now as I was planning this day for, I don't know, my last 15 years of my life, and they screwed up the schedule change on me, so I wasn't able to make it out there. But I'll be tuning in. Hence, I'm repping Kobe's jersey today, and yeah, KG is my guy, my favorite player all time, and Kobe's right behind him. So it's a pretty meaningful day for me.
Oh yeah, I could see that, especially being a Minnesota fan or whatnot. I mean, he's an important factor of even your lifetime. You know, you grew up,
dude.
You were raised in the KG
reason,
era.
Yeah. He is my reason that I'm here right now. That's for sure.
That's what's up. So he's the one that brought in your love to basketball?
Oh, yeah. Yep. There's no other reason besides it, to be honest. I mean, I liked playing the game as a kid, but where I fell in love with the NBA is KG. I mean, I was going to the games as a 5-6-year-old when he first came in, and I remember all those shitty teams we went through, and then he brought our glory years, and we haven't been back to out of the first round since 2004 when he left us. So pretty awful.
That is true. That is
the
true.
Worst franchise in sports.
As of right now, well, you know what? Speaking of which, you know what? That's actually a good thing to start with. The sale of the team. So it looks like Glenn Taylor's going to go ahead and sell the franchise to an organization that includes Alex Rodriguez. What's your thoughts on them making the purchase of this team?
Yeah, everybody always asks me because it's such a random group of guys and a baseball player coming in. But at the end of the day, I mean, these are business guys. I mean, they're not – their whole job, I mean, is to make business moves. You know, they're in the business of making money. And they're competitors. I mean, A-Rod's a competitor. He obviously wanted any sports team. I'm sure he would have preferred a baseball team, but has a great business partner that probably, I'm not sure Mark Laurie's love of basketball, but it's got to be there. I mean, most people don't purchase teams unless they love the sport, especially a team that you're not guaranteed to make a ton of money on, but there's a good chance you're going to make good money on because – I mean, Minnesota definitely will have years where they can lose money and whatnot, but I mean, at the end of the day, the sale price went up. Like, if you had looked at Forbes 2-3 years ago, we're probably looking at 600-700 million. He sold it for 1.5 Bs. So
that's a good point.
That's why you buy and sell these teams, just because of that end number, and people just keep thinking that's going to go up, and I mean, it hasn't proved otherwise. So until that point, you got to be in that business, and it's just exponential growth for sure. But it's all about who these guys are going to hire, and I'm not worried about them moving the team at all. But the only thing that's ever been kind of close, I mean, there's no way of guaranteeing they don't move the team, but the perfect example of shady business dealings is your local team there in Oklahoma City. I mean, that's the number one culprit, I'd say, from Seattle to OKC. But you knew from the beginning those guys were Oklahoma City guys. You know, you had a good feeling like they made. I mean, as much as they shook hands on the surface, I mean, yeah, these guys, their whole, if you looked way back into the lineage, their whole goal was to bring a sports franchise to OKC and whatever. I mean, at the end of the day, the guy got rich out in Seattle, and I mean, when you're that rich, I mean, you're probably not going to be that tied to many communities unless it's a smaller one like Oklahoma City. I mean, that guy's all over the. Yes, he's come out and said Schultz, the guy who sold the team, has came out and said he has regrets a little bit, but Minnesota, being it's a smaller community, I mean, it's one of the smaller states, and Glenn Taylor, our owner, is really tied to the community. He would not be making it out very good if this team left. So we'll see how it plays out, but that's definitely not something I'm going to be worried about. So I'm super excited because our ownership's been garbage for a long time, as we've been the worst franchise in sports for a while now. So maybe this can turn us around.
I can totally see that, and it's coming at an interesting time to me. Because I know that Glenn's been wanting to sell, been wanting to get out the business. Like you said, when you purchase a team, he bought it for $44 million franchises are basically here for not really to make money today, but to make money when you sell it later. This is more of a hobby. Initially, it was built as a hobby. Now that all of these hedge fund guys are getting in there, they're making them more businesses and running them in that nature. But I feel like it's more interesting, especially because the new TV deal is about to come up in 2-3 years. And I think the fascinating thing behind it that he didn't wait, because I was reading a report on NBC Sports that the NBA can potentially command between $70 to $75 billion for the next 10-year TV deal. The last deal was 24.6. Right. And it's mainly because of how international the game has gotten. So I think it's really interesting that he went ahead and just pulled the trigger now, because he must really want to get out. Because if you waited till then, that organization's net worth is going to jump up at least to $2.5 billion. Just because of how big of a TV deal you guys have. So that's interesting to see that didn't go down.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting what that number is. And I don't think America is going to be the one holding up that number a ton. But, no. Yeah, it's the international push. And now with the awards coming up, you got these conspiracy guys coming out. And like last year, there's so many guys that what was it, last year or maybe this, whatever, but all these international players were winning awards, okay? Or it was the year Luka won rookie. It was the year Luka won rookie of the year, but at the same time, those guys deserved it. Like Pascal Siakam was the most improved player, exactly. And so you got conspiracy theorists coming out with Jokic right now, and but it's a landslide. It's not even close.
Oh, yeah, MVP-wise, and let's talk about that a little bit later, because I really want to get your MVP take, but we're coming up on the end of the season. This is our last weekend of basketball, and the play-in starts. What do you think about that play-in tournament? I know there's a lot of people on the fence. I've heard arguments on both sides, and I can honestly see both ends of it, but what do you think what's your feeling on the play-in tournament? You like it? You don't like it? Which side of the fence are you on?
Yeah, I need to hear those people that are on the other side of the fence, because I'm not hearing fans or media people against it at all. It's just players. I'm only hearing players that are against it, and I understand from the players' perspective. But at the same time, this is amazing stuff from a fan and the media. It's just a meaningful basketball to talk about. Where the first round isn't that meaningful normally. So this is to start it off, and should bring up ratings quite a bit. One life or death playing game. We live for that stuff. Game 7's as good as it gets, but it also gives these guys a little extra time to rest, and not jumping right into the playoffs from a really strenuous, tight, jam-packed season all year. So, I've been really jacked up for it all year, and it's really playing out to be a great couple of games here. And if 71 and 72 are meaningful days, that's all we can ask for. That's ideal. So I just don't know any negatives outside of players fighting to make the playoffs and going from 7 to maybe not in the playoffs. So
yeah, no, I'm with you on that, and I feel like it de-incentivizes the tank, because it gives those 2 extra spots. Right. Now, I don't see this being a long-term thing. I don't see them continuing this after this year. I feel like it's more of this season. Well, because, of course, this year is a reduced season. 72 games is shorter. You don't get the opportunity to get those last 10 games to get yourself in the playoffs. It's really just this year and this year only. So I'm figuring that this probably won't continue, just because once you get to 82 games, they don't want to add an 83rd and an 84th game, and that, to me, the players are going to balk to. And then, of course, when the next TV deal comes out, there's an opportunity to make a ton of money and honestly reduce the schedule and make it even more meaningful. I want us to get to a 60 to 65 game season where every game feels like they matter, where we don't have 15 to 20 games that's just kind of like, meh. You know what I mean? So I don't know if them continuing it, but there's a possibility. I can totally see Adam Silver saying, you know what? This was great for ratings. Fans love it. Let's keep doing it. Players, you're going to make extra money from it in some capacity.
Yeah. No,
so we have to see if they can argue that.
I'd be shocked if it's not just a giant success and ratings aren't great these next couple days.
Yeah.
I just don't see how it's not, but it'll be interesting to see those numbers come out. But if they are great, I could see them trying to drop the schedule back to 72 again next year. And just with the players' personalities and all the bitching and moaning that goes on. I mean, I understand this year. This year I was mad that when they started the season and thought it should have been pushed off even more, and just how close it was to last year and just how many back-to-backs they had when they've been doing such a good job the past few years of eliminating a lot of those back-to-backs. So this year was just a mess, and the injuries especially. So I'm with you. I want 60 to 70 games, even though I'm a historian, I like to say, and I've always been for the 82 games. This has been my first year I'm against it, really. And it's mainly because of COVID, but, I mean, we could get back there if I don't know how. I mean, it's going to be interesting just because this season's going to go longer than the past few seasons anyways. So it being this cycle's already started, it's just going to keep pushing back unless we make it a norm. The season goes longer and we start later, which a lot of people want with football and baseball, and which wouldn't be a terrible thing either. It's just messing up the summer league and the draft and those sort of things, intertwining with college basketball. But I really want to see this continue. I mean, it's been a fun season. A big part of it has been these play-in games, and the Wizards, I mean, have been a blast the last few weeks of the year. And those type of teams, like, I want to see those guys grind out. Like, I want Russ and Beal to be out there and having a chance to play some meaningful basketball. And they're going to be a tough out coming up. I just hope Beal is playing. So, we'll see what happens, but it should be fun.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And you made a good point that the start of the season, and this has kind of been my feeling on the year, like, I've enjoyed it, but I'm kind of mad on this season, and the only reason is it feels like it hasn't stopped since July of last year. Like, there's been, it doesn't feel like there's a gap. We typically get maybe a month of, like, free agency, and it's just kind of like it's really more calm than anything. But this year, it went from July all the way to October. By the end of October, we were prepping for the draft, early November, then the draft, and then beginning of December, we had free agency. Then it went straight into the season. It doesn't feel like there was ever a moment where we could sit back and be like, the season's over. I'm kind of curious of what it's going to look like next year. We were already looking at next year as soon as the finals hit. And I think that kind of throws off some of the groove. But you're right. The shorter season feels it feels more urgent. Like, I like the fact that the NBA took time and cut the schedules in half just in case because of COVID. Gives you an opportunity to backload games if you need to based upon rescheduling. It made it a little bit easier. But the issue, as you mentioned, is those back-to-backs, those 5 and 8s, those 6 and 10 games, to where the human body has limits, and we're starting to see where players are falling apart with all those injuries. So what do you think about these key players going down the way this is? I'm guessing, like me, you're attributing it to the fact that the season ain't stopped since July.
Yeah, this has been the most meaningful injuries throughout the entire year that I can ever recall, and I'm like 99% sure it hasn't been the most injuries volume-wise, but the quality of injuries and the top-tier players, like, that's been where we're seeing it, and it makes sense because those are the guys that were playing late into last year and longer time stretches and more tread on the tires, that's for sure. So I know the NBA and the other people are going to be coming back saying, the high-end players is probably fluky and have their own backs, I guess you can say, and based on the numbers of sheer volume haven't been as high. But, if you do the math, I mean, it's these top-end players, and that's what matters. That's the only thing that really matters, unfortunately.
That's what we're here for. We're here for the good. We're here for the top guys.
It's a team sport, yes, but the NBA is really a couple players that, run the show. We've seen over the past few years if LeBron's not playing, these ratings go down quite a bit, but I think it's with as talented as the league is becoming, I think that's going to change, and it has to change soon. There's so many exciting players in this league. It's incredibly deep, so I don't know why more people aren't watching it.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And luckily
should be
this
growing
year,
with the league.
Right. Luckily for them, the ratings this year are up compared to last. But yeah, overall, they've seen a decline over the last few years. The good thing for them is it ain't gonna hurt their money because they're still gonna get those big breads. But so speaking of Russ, you mentioned the Wizards, and I love how the end of the year has been exciting around Russ and the triple doubles and him actually breaking the record and everything. Do you feel like we're underappreciating Russ hitting that triple-double number?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, yeah, he got his day of shine, or 16 hours or whatever, but this is monumental. This has been, I don't know how many years, 30-plus years, 40 years?
46 years. 46 years.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you. But it's
crazy.
huge. I mean, guys like LeBron, Jason Kidd, I mean, those are the type of, they're top, Jason Kidd's a top 35 player all the time, and that's at a minimum. All those guys are top tier guys, even above that are in that. It's a meaningful stat. I mean, that means you're playing harder than anybody out there, and you're doing everything you need to do on the basketball court on the offensive side of the ball, really. At the same time, though, people just don't like the way Russell Westbrook plays, okay? It's just really transcending style of basketball, and you either love it or you hate it. I mean, most people have a love-hate relationship with them, but at the same time, they just say that and don't mean it. Most people, I'd say, if you truly ask them, if they have to pick one side, they like or don't like Russell Westbrook, it's sad. I mean, they're going to lean towards don't like, but at the same time, for all the mistakes he makes, turnovers and whatnot late in the game, bad shots he puts up, he does way more good things, okay? He does way more good for the game of basketball than he does bad. My thing with Russ is you got to compare him to the guys he should be compared to and not the top 3, top 5 players, which people do. That's the problem.
Yeah.
And every year in the league. Like, he's never proven to be a top 3, top 5 player. Don't compare him to those guys. He's never shown he can be one of those players. He's a top 7 player, top 8 guy at his best seasons. And so compare him to the Paul Georges, the Jimmy Butlers, the Lucas, the Dames, don't compare him to LeBron and Harden and Giannis. I mean, put it into perspective. You'll enjoy the guy a lot more. And then you might sit higher on your all-time rankings or just your infinity for the guy. So it's all about perspective, just like everything in life. And it's a sport of comparison. I mean, it's all about competition. And yeah, if you're going to compare him to LeBron frickin' James, the dude sucks. Everybody sucks. It's just the way it goes. So it drives me nuts. And yeah, he doesn't have a ring. Sorry. But do I think he can get a ring? I always will say he's the hardest guy to build around, but you can build around any top 20, 25 player ever. It's just some are harder to build around than others, so the rest is up to the guys around him and the guys up top. So
I agree. And that's the thing about Russ. My argument, similar to yours, is comparing him properly. And the Thunder, when he was here, the biggest thing they dealt with was going into basically injury purgatory. They spent 4 years where they had a great window for a championship, and either one of their 2 stars were out. From Russ getting his ACL torn by Patrick Beverley in the first round of the playoffs, they were the top seed in the West. They were a beeline right to LeBron and the Heat for a rematch in the finals until that injury hit. Next year, you lose Serge Ibaka right when you need to face San Antonio, and he's the main person that stops Tim Duncan in San Antonio. And then, Kevin Durant's out for a year, and then 2016 happens. The list goes on with that. So you can, like you said, you can build around them. It's maybe a little bit harder. it can happen. You just got to stay healthy, which this is a game of attrition, and unfortunately not everybody gets that. But one person, of course, I've always seen Russ attached to is really Steph. And it's mainly from those Golden State, Oklahoma City battles, how much fun they've been. Steph's more the efficient shooter. He's like, a buddy of mine said he's like everybody's favorite puppy. You know, he's like the lovable guy, the guy that people, quote, unquote, can relate to. And then Russ is the guy that nobody really thinks about. And he's the guy that people don't like. They don't like his style of play. He's inefficient, which in some metrics he can be. In others, the way he affects the game is different. It's fascinating of an argument to me with that because if you think about it, everybody says Russ is stat padding, but what is Steph doing? When he's shooting all them threes and stuff, of course, those are for points, but him shooting 15 threes in a game, 20 threes in a game, is that not really stat padding towards that three-point record that he's going to get? I don't get how we can appreciate Steph's side, even though the efficiency, now this is a point I want to make on that. We love efficiency until we don't love it. And I say that because Nikola Jokic, as you mentioned about MVP, he's MVP because his efficiency numbers are off the charts. I mean, he's having a Wilt, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar type season, but nobody wants to give him MVP. They're like, right. He's not really flashy enough. So it's like flash is only good on certain things where other things, we want efficiency. We want the game to be played in fundamentals. That doesn't make any sense to me. I'm thrown off by that.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
It's the same big voices, the yellers out there, and the guys that are just the guys I'm hearing it from. I mean, the Stephen A's, the Skips, and yeah, it goes down. But a lot of the people that are saying these things are people with really large platforms trying to sell whatever shit they're trying to sell and put it out there. And
exactly.
Yes. I mean, Jokic, to an average casual fan that's tuning in 5 games every year or one time a week, sure, he might not be in the top 5, top 10 for those players, the most fun guys to watch, but man, for a guy like me, I love this guy. Like, he's as fun as anybody. He really is.
Oh, my goodness.
And it's just a slower way of playing the game, but like he does some crazy stuff out there, like the passes and the just type of shots the dude takes, and he's just funny. I mean, his goofy persona and his goofy bodily movements, I mean, yeah, it's fun to watch. You just gotta embrace it and watch it closer and on a more timely basis, I guess you can say, versus, I mean, if you just watch a couple plays here and there, you might not see like his big moments because Steph's going to get down and shoot a shot within 6 seconds, and it's going to be a long bomb, Trae Young type thing. So that's what it comes down to, what's selling, what's not. But for those savants out there, I mean, if Jokic isn't all-time fun for you, I don't know what is in basketball.
Agreed. And then with that, now the question is, should Steph be in the MVP conversation?
No.
You're making the exact same face I'm thinking.
I was thinking about Russ and Steph. I got lost on that where we were at there, but for the MVP conversation, it drives me absolutely clinically insane. Like, I want to almost put a gun to my head when people are putting Steph as number 1 and number 2. It's not right. Yeah. It's not right. You can go back so many years. Like, yes, he's putting up incredible numbers and he's winning more games towards the end of the year, but at the end of the day, like, this is the first player I can ever recall as doing this for. His numbers are great, but literally the only numbers that are great are points per game, 3-point percentage, field goal percentage. No. Like, those 3 numbers. Like, go look at all of the numbers.
Right, you're right.
Every
Historically,
other MVP candidate, it's just so frustrating. Like, Steph shouldn't be higher than like 4, 3 or 4 maybe. I mean, 3 I can understand. Yes, you could probably talk me into 3, but when I release my final rankings, he's probably going to be closer to 4 or 5. I mean, at the lowest. I doubt I'll have him that high. I highly doubt it. But, I mean, that's where I'll start to consider him.
No, and I'm with you on that. I've always felt like there's about 3 or 4 criteria that you have to have for an MVP season that makes logical sense. Be the top player on the most dominant team in the league and really dominate. Do something really historic in your season if you're not the top team. And then from there, just be the only guy on the team and actually moving into a top 2-3 spot. That's really your 3 biggest criteria, in my opinion. And I got the Russ getting MVP because he broke the record for triple doubles. We hadn't seen that in 40-plus years. So, yeah, that made sense that year. The Harden MVP, he was so dominant that season, that made sense. This year for Steph, the only thing he's doing is, like you said, he's leading the league in scoring, and
it's not even
he's
a high
shooting
number.
really good 3. Right.
It's not even a high Tracy
McGrady's done it. You know what I'm saying? We've had all these. Allen Iverson's done it, didn't win MVP. We've had so many players that led the league in scoring and didn't win it, so it makes sense.
The difference is the efficiency he's doing it on. That's the big thing. But I mean, he still has decent enough talent around him where we'd really be talking about this for the talent he has on his team. Okay, I feel like I'm a guy that's pretty good with realistic expectations. Okay.
Right.
Look at Luka Doncic. I think their talent around them is very, very equal. Luka is literally, I mean, he's just 4 games, but that 4 games is meaningful. That goes from the 5th to the possibly 9th seed. Like, Steph might not even be in the playoffs, and he's been on the outside looking in most of the year. So let's put it in perspective. I mean, those things matter. Jokic has had a lot of missing players throughout most of the year. And the Nuggets' talent hasn't been that great this year outside of the emergence of Michael Porter Jr. and Jamal played great for when he was there.
He is playing so good.
Yeah, it was I'll start crying if I think about that. But yeah, I mean, Jamal Murray, I consider him an all-star. I really do. He's about as sub-all-star as it gets.
Yeah, I feel like Jamal Murray is going to end up in the Mike Conley situation. I think the same thing about Trae Young moving forward, that they're going to be so good, but not good enough to get to the All-Star game because there's much better players in their conference. You know what I'm saying? Like Conley only hit. Yeah. I don't think Trae's going to make another All-Star unless Kyrie's gone, James Harden's gone. No, think about it. No, I'm being real. That's the thing that's going to hurt him. That's what hurt him this year in All-Star game. That's why he didn't make it this year. Kyrie was healthy for a change. Yet James Harden that moved over to the East. And those players aren't going anywhere for a couple years. Now, if Kyrie does his typical thing of not being healthy, I can totally see Trae Young making his move back in, which is the reason why he made it 2 years ago, is because Kyrie didn't play this season. If those guys are healthy, Trae Young, similar to Jamal Murray, they have an upward hill battle against players in their conference that are a little bit superior if you truly think about it. You know what I'm saying? But with the Jokic argument, you're right. And Michael Porter Jr. Now, let me ask you this. I want you to go back to the Trae Young piece, but I want to ask you this as well. With Michael Porter Jr.'s emergence, do you think that it might be time for him to move Jamal Murray?
Absolutely not. I mean, as long as they can get great defense from their 2 and their 4, like Aaron Gordon, as long as they have him there, and then they find a 2 that can guard, like a mother, I think they're great. I think they have what it takes to win. It's just Aaron Gordon needs to get a little better. Michael Porter Jr. needs to get a little better on defense. But everything else, as long as Michael Porter Jr. keeps improving, which I think he will on the defensive side of the ball, and Aaron Gordon becomes a little more consistent all around, I think they have what it takes to win if they stay healthy. I really do. And I love they're just random young draftees like Marcus Howard, my guy, just popping off last night and coming out from nowhere. Zeke Naji. I think they have the bullets loaded. It's just they got to let him out and they got to release him and they got to get this thing rolling. I just want them to be healthy. But Trae Young, the difference versus him and Jamal Murray, I mean, one, Trae is better. But two,
agree. No, I agree.
And you can argue, I mean, the smart play and the efficiency and the defense, but Trae's night and day from where he was last year. And I think he's pretty decently better than Jamal. It's closer than most think, though. But he's the best player on his team, okay? And as long as his team stays healthy, this team is here to stay. Like, they could be the number one seed in the East next year. I really believe it with this team if they're completely healthy.
Oh, no, I agree with you. And that was no true shade towards Trae Young because, you know, being from Oklahoma, I'm a big Trae Young fan or whatnot. My thing is that was the issue that, like I said, Mike Conley had is he didn't make All-Star games because there was just better point guards in the conference that were still at their apex. Now, I think that once we start seeing those guys teeter out, then I can totally see Trae taking over it. But for Jamal, my thought behind him is that it's not that Jamal Murray isn't a good player. I think that he is kind of holding back the emergence of Michael Porter Jr. I think Michael Porter Jr. will grow faster without Jamal on the roster, and I think he may actually surpass Jamal in skill set because I think he has all the tools. It's just that, to be honest, it's kind of the problem with a lot of young players developing on championship contender teams. You can't really develop if you ain't in the game. You can't really develop if you're not really getting the ball. You know what I mean? So that's where that's the only thing I'm thinking about now. I wouldn't want the Nuggets to trade Jamal Murray, but I think that's the thought process I'm having is if they get rid of Jamal Murray, maybe Michael Porter Jr. becomes a top 5 forward in the West. I don't know.
I can see Jamal taken away from Michael Porter Jr. I can. Just touches scoring-wise. I mean, they're both great ISO players, usage.
Mm-hmm.
I think they got to let it ride for a little bit. Don't overreact too quickly, but hey, I mean, if you traded him while he's injured, you found something great out there, and the way things are going, I just think Michael Porter Jr. should get there anyways. I think he's kind of like a Paul George in regards to his versatility of scoring. Paul George is as versatile a scorer as they get.
I like that.
And I think Michael Porter Jr. is the same way on offense. I don't think he needs a ton of usage to be amazing. And hot take, kind of, maybe not. I think Michael Porter Jr. is better already. I think he just might be. And
I'm not going to fight you. That's a fair point.
Yeah, I'm picking Michael Porter Jr. over Jamal Murray right now going forward, absolutely. And Jamal Murray's been my guy before pre-draft, but I think they both, I mean, Denver needs them both. The only thing I can see out there that you'd think about trading Jamal for, just quick side note, is send him up to Toronto, get Fred VanVleet back, maybe just that, because Fred's the perfect fit there. Fred's perfect, that 1-for-1. Or else maybe like a Malcolm Brogdon. I mean, that's perfect as well.
That's a fair one there. That's something to think about. I'm going to think about that. Okay, let's talk play-in. We've got a jam-packed set of players that teams that could potentially be put into this. So right now the play-ins are kind of set, and the last one that we are waiting to hear from is the Lakers and the Portland Trailblazers. So, do you think that the Trailblazers end up in that 7th seed playing potentially Golden State for the play-in, or you think the Lakers end up sticking there at 7?
So, let me see here who they're both playing. So,
final schedules, you got the Lakers are traveling to Indiana, and then they have the Pelicans right afterwards, back-to-backs.
Yeah, I think Lakers win
Denver.
both those games.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Portland
Denver,
has Denver.
And I think Denver might be trying to do something funny there the last game. We'll see what happens today. But they might try to mess around and figure out a way to play Portland versus LA.
If they beat Portland, they will play Portland in the potential play-in after the play-in tournament. If they lose, they're guaranteed to play Dallas in the first round. Which one do you think Denver will prefer?
I think they'd prefer Dallas, to be honest. I don't think they really care. I don't think they really care. I think they want the higher seed, though. I do. And as long as they're not playing LA, they're going to do everything they can to not play LA. However, if I'm a team, I want to play LA sooner than later.
Exactly.
Just to, it all depends if you believe in your team or not. I mean, Denver, I don't think they're waiting on anybody to get healthy. So, Paul Millsap, I don't know if he needs a little more time to just get back to a higher percentage. I don't know where we're at there, but I'd want to play these guys while they're weak because AD hasn't been great. He's not, I'd say he's like 85% right now, and who the heck knows about LeBron? I mean, why not eliminate these guys sooner than later and just go in there and try to beat them up? Because Portland's rolling right now. Dallas is rolling. I think those teams are all playing first round-wise. I think Portland, Dallas, and the Lakers are all going to be a pretty equal situation. So, I don't know.
Yep.
I mean, it's a toss-up. Why not just, if you're going to go out and try to win, why not win? I mean, but at the end of the day, maybe you know more about where these guys, like if LeBron's fully healthy and he's just ready to go and they've been holding him out, so
I can see it. That sounds like
I can see him being 100% right when he comes out of the gates, and it wouldn't shock me. But it wouldn't also surprise me if he needs a couple days to get going, you know?
True.
Needs to get that shot going and get back into gameplay. It's just AD, I'm not saying he's 100% right now. He's had 1.5, 2 great games so far, and I need to see more out of AD. He's not back to peak form yet, so we'll see. It's such a tough situation. I would want the 3 seed if I'm Denver, though. I want the higher seed if you can get it. Gives you confidence, but also gives you home court advantage, and you're not playing games like that. I'd be more worried about trying to be in the same bracket as the Clippers, to be honest. If I'm Denver, I'm worrying about playing the Clippers the earliest. That's if I'm any team.
Yeah. Oh no, I agree with you on that. And looking at it, so if the Lakers swap with Portland because Portland loses to Denver, then Denver gets the 3 seed, but then they're going to face the Lakers because in the first round, which probably, like as you mentioned, I think that's a fair point. You probably want to play Lakers early, then you do want to play them later whenever they're looking like they're a little bit more healthy, where they feel like they're getting more rolling down the hill. They're building up steam. You don't want to play them at that point. So that's a fair one. So
I do understand not wanting to play with fire, though, and let somebody else try to take them out first, but it's a sticky situation. If you think you're rolling and your team's ready, you got to beat them at some point, and why not beat them when they're easier? No matter what, they're going to be easier right away.
Right, and what's funny to me is I think that's the most dangerous team to me. And let's jump into the even more playoff teams. The dangerous team to me right now feels like it's Golden State. Like, because Steph is reeling off these games where if you give him one game, I think that Steph can give you some problems. In a 7-game series, I think you can figure out ways to make it not work for them, especially because the playoffs is more physical. Everybody locks down. There's way more strategy, way more thinking. Playing games, I see them going in, but if Golden State plays Utah in the first round as the 8th seed, I'm not confident that Utah can beat them without Donovan Mitchell being 100%.
You know, if Golden State gets Utah, which that's probably what it's looking like. If Golden State wins, they'll be the 7th seed. Okay, if they win their first game. But actually, it's not a guarantee. They could fall to 9 here. Sorry. They can fall to 9, so they could be the 8 or 9 seed. They definitely could. But yeah, you're right. If they play Utah, they have a chance with Steph. But at the same time, you're relying on Wiggins and everybody else to go off. And you're going to get 1 or 2 games out of Wiggins. That's it. So is Steph's going to be able to...
Him?
What's that?
what is it about Wiggins? I just don't get like how people don't realize how much of a bust he truly is. Like, there's something about that dude that as a number one draft pick, you would expect so much more than him putting up 20 points and like absolutely nothing afterwards.
I'm not to the point where I call you're right. I mean, yeah, for a number one pick with all the hype he had a ton of hype. Yeah, he's a disappointment. A bust is a large word to put on a guy that's been very, very healthy, scored a lot of points. Like, the dude might finish 25,000 plus points and like a top 50 all-time points guy, maybe even top 30 the way he's getting minutes and putting up points. And if you look at that, I mean, that'd be pretty incredible. But it's his defense this year that's just kind of thrown me for a loop. They're the 4th-ranked defense right now, Golden State, on the season. It's insane how good they've been defensively. And you look at that personnel, a bunch of G Leaguers, and a guy that you mentioned it. You never know what's going to happen with Andrew Wiggins, who's going to show up, and just came out of nowhere and just locking dudes down and playing very smart defense. And yeah, it just doesn't make sense to me with the personnel they have. And
right.
Steve Kerr, I didn't realize he could do this with the squad defensively, and that's been the most impressive thing about Golden State. But that's also mind-blowing why they're not higher up and winning more games, because their defense is so good. It shouldn't be that hard offensively, even though that just shows you how much more important offense is in today's game. It really is. So
that's fair. I give a lot of credit to Kerr and Draymond. As much as we clown Draymond and pick at him for his comments of being one of the best defensive players ever, he's kind of got an argument. Because like you just said, with that team of scrubs and him being the anchor to that defense, because when he's not there, the defense doesn't exist, he doesn't have an argument to surpass Dennis Rodman yet. He does have an argument to say that he should be.
Not Hakeem.
Exactly, but he has an argument to say that he should even be in a conversation with them. He does have that much. I'll give him that portion of it. That's a fair piece. So, okay. All right, who do you think is going to make the biggest playoff run?
Biggest playoff team or player?
A team. What team do you think is going to make a run in the playoffs that you feel like might be a surprise to people?
That would be a surprise.
Who do you think, that'd be a surprise, and who do you think's also going to end up getting eliminated early? That's going to be a surprise.
Yeah,
bold predictions here.
I mean, if the Lakers get the 7th seed, I don't think it's going to surprise a ton of people if they went on a run. So that's probably the easy answer. I won't go with them, even though they're probably going to be my pick as long as LeBron and AD are on the court game 1. They're probably going to be my pick to come out of the West, but depends on how they look in the play-in game and whatnot. That could change very quickly to the Clippers for me. But run-wise, that would be surprising. I'm going to go with Portland. I'm a sucker for Portland, and I've been I just don't think. I think the only teams you could say here for a surprise is the 5 through 8 seeds in the West, because I think 1 through 4, if they won a couple rounds or a round or two, it's not going to surprise a ton of people just how good they've been all year and what Denver did last year. So it comes down to Dallas, Portland, and whoever gets the 7, 8 seeds. And then, like I said, the Lakers don't seem like they'd be that big of a surprise for anyone. So I'm going with Portland over Dallas, just because Dame and CJ are just getting better and better. They're 8-2 in their last few games. Nurkic still has a bit to go, but Anthony Simons has been playing great. They got more in the tank that's not there, and so I just hope they can get there defensively because they've been god awful on that end.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Yeah,
what do you think
I'm with
for
you
the
on
West?
that.
What you got any teams that you think that? I just don't think Dallas has enough in them.
No, you're right. I'm with you on that, and you make a valid point that 1 through 3 shouldn't feel like a surprise, but I think I think the West is the toughest one because honestly, 1 through 3 might be the surprise. You know what I'm saying? Like they're ranked high, and it's a different year because of all the injuries and teams falling that you didn't expect to fall, like the Lakers, Golden State, things of that nature. Even Denver. I thought Denver was going to be higher. I thought they were going to be probably a 2 or 1 seed going into this year. I felt like they had the momentum and the youth to keep the engine going, but then of course they started slow, injuries hit. And they're at this roller coaster, even though Jokic is playing MVP ball. I think the team that's going to make the run, that's going to probably surprise us, like you said, the easy answer is the Lakers. I'm not going to pick them either because that is easy. I think Phoenix might actually get close. I think Phoenix might make the Western Conference Finals if the Lakers are not on their side. If the Lakers end up on their side, I don't see Phoenix going in.
Phoenix would only surprise me, honestly, if they made the finals. It wouldn't surprise me if they win a couple rounds, one and two. But it would shock me, honestly. It would shock me if they beat the Lakers and the Clippers back to back. It would. I'd be absolutely shocked if they did that.
Zach, though, think about it. Chris Paul's never made it to a Western Conference Finals game ever.
Yeah.
No, that's what my surprise is.
Chris Paul did in Houston.
Did they go in Houston 2 years ago? Okay, so that was his first time. That was his only time.
Yeah,
okay.
One and only.
The Clippers haven't made it ever. One and only, exactly. So
correct.
That also
Clippers
still adds to it. He's only been one time. He's only been one.
Right. No, it's a thing for sure. It's a thing.
It's a thing. It's a thing.
And it's the first time these guys are playing in the playoffs. That's the biggest thing that. Like, if they lose in the first round, not going to shock me either. It's
right.
Teams like Utah and Phoenix, I mean, they have a lot to prove for me. I mean, it's not just a guarantee like years past 1 through 3 seeds. And I think this could be the craziest year in NBA history for a long time since, like, the Knicks went on a run to the finals in 99 or whatever.
Houston did, what was
exactly.
that, 93, the 93, 94 championships.
Exactly.
They were the, no, 94, 95, they were the 6th seed, and he won the championship. And I think that's the lowest seed to ever win it. So, you're right. This is going to be the weird one. East Conference, you got to give me somebody that you think is going to make a surprise, because they've got a setup that's full of surprises, in my opinion.
To be honest, it's a Miami Heat for me. I mean, it's... Can they get enough out of the guys like Kendrick Nunn, Goran Dragic, Duncan Robinson, Tyler Hero? It's those guys, because Jimmy and Bam are going to be ready to go. They're going to give it everything they got, and I mean, it's just, are the rest of the guys going to be good enough again? I'd be shocked if they don't win round 1 against Atlanta as of right now, or whoever, if it's the Knicks as well. I'd be absolutely shocked if they lost that. And then you go to the second round. As long as if they were to get Milwaukee, I probably would pick Miami right now. I just might. It all depends on which Miami team shows up in the first round. But as for Philly, would be the team that I could see get upset in the second round. I just don't see Brooklyn losing as long as they got all 3 guys on the court. So it's going to depend if who's out, and I mean, as long as those guys are playing, they literally only need to be at 80% for me to say they're going to win this thing. Brooklyn, that's how good I think they are, and I believe in them. But Philly, I mean, just think the rest can go cold. Embiid's going to get his, and I think the rest. I still need to see more out of Philly and Milwaukee. I really do. I've been a big Milwaukee. I don't know. I don't want to say hater because I'm definitely higher on them the most. I still am, but I'm just in question. I mean,
you're rightfully so in question because they disappointed us the last 2 years. Like the MVP has not been able to get past the second or the conference finals. We've seen the disappointment. So you're right. You're right. You're quality.
The dude's 26 years old. Okay.
right. That's the one thing I have to remind myself every time I think of Giannis. He's only 26.
He deserves to go through these trials and tribulations. He deserves for us to let him have that and let it happen. As long as he's losing to one of these top teams and he's not losing in like the first round to one of these other teams, like, I'm okay with it as long as he's fighting, you know, and the games are close. But if you get blown out and you go up 2-0 and then you don't have too many close games after that, like last year, I mean, yes, he's definitely underachieved a little bit, but just because you're the 1 seed, no, it's all about context. As long as you're losing to one of these other great teams and you're still keeping your team close, I don't know, man. I mean, I'm not going to be disappointed till he's like 28, 29. He's still moving forward and he's making it to the conference finals, and that's what matters. I mean, but if he doesn't lose, if he loses to anybody outside of Philly and Brooklyn, it's a failure for sure. For sure.
I agree. And the way Miami played them last year, they were just built to be perfect. I felt like the only team that Milwaukee was going to lose to last year was Miami. And I felt like the only team that Miami was going to actually lose to was probably going to be like Boston at the time. And it didn't end up that way, but it's perfect. For me on the East, I do think that Milwaukee's going to go to the Eastern Conference Finals. This is my caveat. This is my reason why. I made a bet with my buddy that Brooklyn gets eliminated second round. This is why. I have no clue who's going to be there. I have no clue who's going to be healthy. And because this is their first year with a coach that I don't think is going to be able to adjust properly in the playoffs, you can't go in the playoffs thinking you can just outscore everybody and you're going to win. It don't work that way. People clamp down. They get prepared. They adjust. The only thing that hurts Milwaukee to me is I think that coaching is the reason why they'll end up losing. This roster, when they added Drew Holiday, and Chris Middleton's always been a defender, adding Drew Holiday as a defender and then Giannis, this is the only team to me in the NBA that can actually defend Brooklyn. Can they stop them? No, but they can defend them. They can stay in front of them. They can make the game hard for them to the point of no matter what shot they throw up, there's a potential chance they can miss easier because Milwaukee is long enough, strong enough to actually keep up with these guys. Drew Holiday's ridiculous on defense, and I know Kyrie hates dealing with him, and so did James Harden.
For sure.
So I'm sold on Milwaukee's moving up because of them adding Drew Holiday. I just have to see if their coaches don't hold them back when it comes to the clutch time of making adjustments and getting Giannis the ball in the proper situations.
In the proper situations, but it's getting the ball out of his hands in the proper situations too. Like I've been saying this last 3 years, and they've been showing it more in the regular season this year, but still it's the regular season. The defenses aren't the same, and it's just different. It's way different. So the last 3 to 5 minutes, Giannis should not even touch the ball really, unless it's just like a quick in the middle, in the lane, dish out, kick out. I mean, get him at the elbow, getting it out of his hands as quick as possible. Let Chris Middleton especially, who's clutch as hell, do work in those last 3 to 5 minutes. Like, Chris can get
use
it
him
done.
as a distraction.
He's that good.
Yes.
Chris Middleton
I
is
agree.
that good. Unless you're just a lob threat, I mean, do not let him do much in those last few minutes. I'm sorry. I mean,
I
just
agree.
try it.
You make a great point. You make a great point with that, and that's what makes me think about how the second round for Philadelphia is going to end up. I think that they're going to play Miami because Atlanta's not beating the Heat. I like Atlanta. I think they're still too young. I think they're about 2 years away from adding the right scorer next to Trae Young to where they just shoot up. If they allow coaching to do it, because Nate McMillan is a great coach when you put him in the right situations. I think Philadelphia is going to run into that problem when they run into Miami in the second round, and I think that's going to be the team that's going to be the biggest shocker, is Miami possibly making it to the Eastern Conference Finals for the second straight year. As a 5 seed, even dealing with injuries and players being in and out and being exhausted, because I know they're tired. You can tell by Jimmy Butler, they're tired. And they don't even have that second scorer yet anymore because Victor Oladipo's done. So I think they're going to be our biggest shock. So, okay, let's jump into this before we wrap up, and I'll let you enjoy the rest of your day. team stocks. I want you to tell me, I'm going to give you 4 teams on each conference. I want you to tell me if you would buy their stock in the first round, and if you would keep that stock through the second round. Or if you would go ahead and sell your stock in the first round and just be done with it. All right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
okay.
First team we got New York Knicks.
Selling.
Okay. Fair.
Selling.
Fair. They got Milwaukee first round, so that's a fair one. That's a fair one. All right.
They still could get that 5 seed. They could even get the 4 seed, I think. It's 8. It's 8. They're only a half a game back of the 4 seed. I mean, if they win.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah.
You got a good point there. They are very close to it.
Even if they get the 4, though, I'm selling. I'm sorry. I mean, I don't care if they get 4 games in the Garden. The arena, I mean, it's still going to matter. Home court's still going to matter. But it will surprise me. I mean, just a little bit. But it won't shock me if they beat Miami or Atlanta. It won't.
Okay.
I'd probably pick them against Atlanta, though.
I would, too. I'm buying on that same thing.
Regardless, right now I'm selling.
Okay. All right. The Brooklyn Nets.
Buying. All the way.
All the way. Okay.
They're all playing tonight. Saturday night, they're playing.
I'm buying this stock in the first round. Like I said, I'm selling the second round. Got to get out. Get out high. Get out while it's high. I'm selling second round.
Wow.
All right. The Denver Nuggets.
I mean, right now they have Portland, but it could easily be LA, and it could easily be it could end up playing Dallas as well. So what we do know, it's not going to be the Clippers round 1. So I'm buying Denver stock,
okay,
but I'm not incredibly confident in it because they can easily lose to any of those 3 teams they play easily.
That. You're right, and I think that's where I'm at. I'm going to buy them. Actually, you know what? I'm going to sell them first round, and it's no offense to them. If they face the Lakers first round, they have no chance without Jamal Murray.
But right now they're not, have no chance. So you're just banking on them playing the Lakers?
I'm banking on them playing the Lakers.
Buy yourself, they play Dallas or Portland.
Ooh.
Because like I said, I'm buying
Dallas or Portland?
Against...
Oh, I would sell Dallas in the first round. They got the Clippers so far. And I can't buy them against Denver.
I'm selling Dallas.
It's crazy. I couldn't see it. Okay. The Phoenix Suns. We talked about them, but are you buying them throughout, or are you buying and selling, or are you selling them now? What you got on Phoenix?
Whew. I might be selling some more.
Oh!
Right now they're playing the Lakers, and even with Anthony Davis, the Lakers still should be able to win 2 games. If LeBron doesn't play, I'd be picking the Suns. I would be. But as long as LeBron steps on the court, which all signs are pointing to yes, I'm going to be selling the Suns getting upset in round 1. Wink, wink, upset. That's whatever you want to call that. Would not be a disappointing year for the Suns. It would just be disappointing if they didn't put up a good fight. As long as they won a game or 2, that's fine by me. But I'd feel bad as hell for Chris Paul, man. I would. I really would.
He's carrying a bunch of kids, and I'm proud of him doing it. But like you, I'm
first time ever being in the playoffs. It's a different rodeo. It is. So
it's a different animal. That bubble wasn't the same.
It sucks selling a top seed like that, and Chris Paul's one of my favorites all time. But yeah, I think Anthony Davis is gonna eat up DeAndre Ayton's dreams.
Yeah, I'm sold with you on that one. All right, that is Zak Noble with Noble and Roosh with BallisLife. Let them know where they can find you, man.
Just Twitter, really. ZakNoble. Interact with me anytime, but got a pretty good lineup of guests coming on our show. Got some players, maybe some NFL players sprinkled in there.
Nice.
So we're expanding, reaching out, but it's been fun. Got a good thing going with Rouge here and enjoying it, but this playoffs, man, it's going to be wild. I just want it to be as wild as my thoughts are on this, but yeah, enjoy it, man. Enjoy it. We'll have to look back on this, chop it up, but thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
I appreciate the time, man.